Hello, my friends. Thank you for being here. I'm Renee. These are Words to Honor God. And today I'm going to talk about the book A Wizard of Earthsea by Ursula K. Guin. I just finished reading this book yesterday. I want to give my thoughts. I'm going to give you guys a spoiler-free review in case you're interested in reading the book yourself. And then I'll get into a bit of a spoiler discussion at the end. All of this is going to come from a Christian perspective. I'm a Christian. I love fantasy. I loved fantasy before I became a Christian. I don't think that you have to give it up in order to follow God. I do think you have to be more discerning about what kind of fantasy you read and you enjoy. I'm also just very sensitive to media anyways. I really don't like anything that is too worldly or anything that tempts you to sin in the mind or things like that. I'm just not a big fan of secular media in general. I try to be very careful about what I let myself read or enjoy. So I wasn't sure coming into this what it was going to be like. This is a really old book. It was written back in the late 1960s or published in the 1960s, so sort of a contemporary with Tolkien. And it was also published at a time where fantasy wasn't a super big genre in the sort of general societal zeitgeist. Fantasy was a small or niche genre. And this book was also written sort of for young adults as well. It's not necessarily an adult fantasy book. It's not a super childish fantasy book either, which does come across in the writing. The themes are mature, I would say, but not adult or not vulgar or anything like that. There isn't really any romance in this book. You're more just following this one single character on his own sort of personal hero's journey. He is a wizard. He becomes a wizard. That's part of the story. So there is magic in this book as well. The magic system is, to the reader, it's sort of a soft magic system. To the characters, it's a hard magic system. So you're following a boy named Ged who shows signs of being a wizard or having the ability to utilize and control sort of the magic of this world from an early age. He gets trained and then he is sent off to a wizard school where he learns a lot more. And as the reader, it's sort of a tool that the characters use in the background. The book is more focused on this character. The book has themes of pride, jealousy, anger, as well as making a mistake that changes the course of your life forever and dealing with that mistake, how to remedy that mistake, facing the darkest parts of yourselves in order to overcome certain challenges. There are parts about being tempted by this sort of knowledge or power that promises to be good, but is truly unknown, and then how this character sort of deals with that. For being a fantasy book that was written by a proclaimed atheist and Taoist Buddhist, there are a lot of sort of biblical themes within it. I think that that's less an intention of the author and more just the fact that almost every single storytelling trope or theme that has, some solid everlasting weight to it is going to tie back to the Bible in some way, because that's sort of the original story book. That's sort of where all of the stories that we tell now originate from. And I think that overall this book is very positive. It has a happy ending, and the main character grows and changes a lot in my opinion, a positive way. It warns against jealousy. It warns against pride. It shows a boy becoming a man, taking accountability for his own actions, caring about other people and caring about their safety and putting himself in danger in order to save others. I really enjoyed Ursula K. Le Guin's writing as well. I think she was able to be very descriptive and able to give you a lot of insight into the characters without having to necessarily spell it out for you or describe it exactly. She leaves things up to the reader to either interpret or put together on their own. and will sort of describe something or reference something either within the world or the characters, and then just allow the reader to kind of draw their own conclusions. And I always appreciate when the writer assumes intelligence in the reader and will leave stuff for the reader to piece together. The pacing of this book is interesting. It does a lot of telling. It does plenty of showing too, but it does a lot of telling. So it takes place over the course of years and years, like as a child to an adult. So a good chunk of this main character's lifetime. And there are points where, months or seasons or years will pass within a sentence of the book, or the characters on a journey will make a stop and they'll be there for, a month or so, and it's a paragraph or two in the book. It's a very long amount of time sort of condensed into, this version is a little over 200 pages. So I would say it's sort of an easy read. There's not a lot of high level vocabulary. It's not super complex or convoluted in terms of the number of characters or the plot or the complicating factors. Like, some fantasy is really heavy in terms of lore and in terms of history and background, and you have to kind of piece it all together as you go. This is very, very simple with all of that, which I think makes it much more accessible if you're either getting back into reading or you're kind of starting to read fantasy. I would highly recommend A Wizard of Earthsea. If you're a Christian who enjoys fantasy, I think you would like this book, because again, it's more character driven. It has an overall positive theme. It doesn't go into some of the like darker or more vulgar themes that a lot of modern day fantasy does. It's not grimdark or anything at all. I don't know if there's a specific term for it, but I would say it's like a classic. It's a classic fantasy. So as a Christian, I would certainly recommend this book. So that's going to be it for my spoiler-free review. I hope that was helpful for you. If you do pick up the book and read it, let me know. Come back here, let me know what you think. I'm going to go into some more spoiler discussions now about some more details of what happened, and then talk a little bit about why it made such an impact on me reading it over this past month or so. Okay, so let's get into it. So the sort of main crux of this story happens, I don't know, probably a good third of the way through. It's an event where the main character, Ged, he's been at this wizard school for at least a year or so. He's learned a lot, but obviously magic is very dangerous and you have to be careful with how you use it and what you do with it. And the main character, Ged, had a sort of rival. I think his name was Jasper. Yes, he had a rival named Jasper, and he was sort of trying to prove himself to this Jasper, to this rival. And Jasper sort of challenged him, sort of half jokingly, I think, and then Ged jumped on it to summon up a spirit from the dead. So it's interesting here as well that negative magic used aligns with sort of the witchcraft or the occult of the modern day, of speaking to the dead or speaking to spirits or something like that. So he was calling this spirit of this like ancient, I'm referencing the book here, the spirit of this ancient lady from an old song who died 1,000 years ago. And there was obviously a crowd as well. So he wasn't doing it just for this Jasper, but Ged was also trying to impress the other students there and to show off his power, because he had already been sort of hailed as a very powerful, like naturally gifted wizard. And of course this goes badly, and he ends up summoning this dark spirit that attacks him and leaves him scarred and bedbound for months and months. He was, I think, in like a coma for a long, long time after summoning this dark shadow spirit that was then sort of unleashed upon the world. And one of the older mages, like the teachers there, actually lost their life trying to save the school and the students and Ged from this dark creature that he had summoned. So it's referenced throughout the book as like a Gebeth or a shadow or something like that. And once Ged sort of recovers, he tries to go back to school, but he learns that this creature that he had released when trying to do this summon spirit or summon dead spell is attached to him in a sort of spiritual sense. It's also hunting him, trying to take over his body. So he could be inhabited, his own mind, his own spirit killed by this thing, and then it would sort of become him and walk in his skin and have all the powers that he has as a wizard. Only it is this evil, dark thing that would be basically possessing him. So interesting as well that there's basically like demonic possession in this book. And that is, again, framed as a very bad, a very negative thing that is a danger to both Ged and truly everyone around him. So after that, sort of the journey that he goes on is, at first he's trying to run from this thing and trying to be, a good wizard and be helpful to whatever community that he's placed in and keep them safe, which is what wizards are supposed to do in this world. But he feels himself being chased and pursued by this thing. And so he ends up having to run after, X amount of time when it starts to kind of catch up to him. So has a lot of fear within him of this, and he's running from it, and he doesn't want to face it because he knows or believes or thinks that either he's going to be killed or this thing is going to be able to take over his body and his mind and then wreak havoc upon the world in order to do the evil of wherever it came from. And I guess another important thing to note would be that names have a lot of power in this world. So if you know something's true name, then you can control it, or that gives you power over it. And his true name is Ged. He's known as Sparrowhawk to others, but as the reader, we know that his name is Ged. And part of the story is him trying to find out the true name of this shadow beast. And if he can find out that thing's true name, then he could potentially control it or destroy it from there. So he spends a lot of time running. He comes across this tower and a girl and an old man who are sort of protecting this stone. And I don't remember exactly what the significance of the stone was in this world, but the girl was saying, oh, the stone speaks to you. And if you touch it, then it will give you this knowledge that you are searching for. And she's saying, like, it's a good thing I did it. It tells me that you're going to, have a good outcome. Again, very interestingly reminiscent of that first story from the Bible of Adam and Eve, and this sort of tempting voice that promises knowledge that the woman has already fallen for. And in the story, Ged is able to sort of suspect it for what it truly is, that it probably is some evil thing that is a liar, and doesn't fall for it, doesn't fall to that temptation. And that does, of course, prolong his journey. And so he spends a lot of time running from the shadow, and then sort of realizes after much hardship and after seeking the knowledge of an old mentor who he knew when he was a child, he realizes that he cannot run. He has to turn around and confront it and fight it. And whether that results in his own death or the death of this thing, something must be done. So he does at one point sort of confront this shadow, and the shadow ends up knowing his name and calls him Ged, and is able to sort of freeze him and prevent him from using his magic. And the shadow is able to sort of get away from him from there. And I think that just makes Ged more determined to learn this thing's true name and then to defeat it. And it's sort of a thing where, even if it takes him the rest of his life, even if he has to sacrifice his life to do it, then he will. And he ends up finding again an old friend who is able to help him out on his journey. And because of this, whatever darker spiritual tie that was created when he first summoned the thing, he can kind of feel where it is and kind of pursue it. All along the way, as he's going along, he's again trying to learn this thing's true name so that he can control it. And one thing that was told to him is that true names, let me see if I can find the exact spot. I cannot find the exact line in the book easily, but it was something about being in the silence in order to hear something's true name. So going quiet, turning inward, clearing your mind, and then just listening for some sort of greater knowledge to come through. In my opinion, that sounds a lot like shutting up and listening to the Holy Spirit as well. Anyways, big spoiler here. He ends up with his friend traveling sort of beyond the reaches that any man has ever traveled before, going sort of past the map to the east, sailing on the sea further than, any ship has ever gone, and no ship has ever returned from this far. And he finds this thing out there in some shadowy land, and Ged confronts it and calls it by its true name, Ged, his own name. The shadow was a part of him. It was some deep, dark part of him that had been sort of peeled away from his soul and given life when he tried to complete that sort of darker magic under the wrong circumstances and with the wrong intentions as well. And then this darker part of him had been given life, been given form, and as he tried to run from it, as he feared it, it grew more powerful. As he turned to confront it and to chase it, then it ran from him. And only by knowing and saying its true name and confronting it with its true name, bringing truth into light, was he able to defeat it. And like I said, that sort of sequence of events sort of mirrors something that I've been going through as well. There was a part of myself, a very kind of subconscious part, that was sort of wreaking havoc in my life in ways that I didn't really know or didn't really understand until just recently. And I was kind of trying to run from it. I was trying to rebuke it. I thought it might have been just spiritual warfare. And it wasn't until truly sitting with it and facing it and seeing the truth of what it was, that it was actually this sort of unhealed something in me that was trying to exert control over my life in order to make me feel safe. But the safety it was looking for was a lie. The control that it was looking for was also a lie. I found the truth by turning to God and giving everything that I was feeling, everything I was doing, all of my fears and everything. I brought those to the light. I gave those up to God. He helped me to see the truth of whatever this was inside of me. And in doing that, that started the healing process. So very similar to Ged, I've had this thing that I thought was a separate entity from me, deeply affecting my life that I was running from. And only by turning, chasing it, facing it, seeing the truth of it, the deep down, dark, scary truth of it, then was I able to sort of let it go from there. And I'm still in that process. I'm still on a journey with this. That's sort of a different subject for a different video. I'm actually planning on sort of writing a short story about it as a way to just like process and express it. So I don't know, subscribe if you want my story. Yeah, I really enjoyed this book, The Wizard of Earthsea, or A Wizard of Earthsea. I'm definitely going to read the rest of them. So you guys let me know if this was helpful for you, if this was something you like. Again, I'm going to end up talking a lot about fantasy on this channel because I love fantasy. I think I mentioned I grew up with fantasy even before I became a Christian, and I'm not willing to give it up. I do think there is good fantasy out there, and I would love to hear your opinions on that. We're going to talk about it a lot more, but I think that's going to be it for me today. Thank you so much for sticking around to the end of this video. If you've already, again, this is the spoiler section, so if you've read the book before and you enjoyed it or you didn't enjoy it, let me know below your thoughts on it, either from a Christian perspective or from an atheist perspective if you're not a Christian. I'm just interested to chat more about it and hear what you guys have to say. So please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and I will be back soon with more words to honor God. I hope you all have a blessed day, and I will see you next time.